My love was a lass from Shadowdale, a beauty with hair of silver. A pirate from Presper stole her away. The sea take all pirates from Presper, brave boys, sea take the pirates of Presper. The sea's my love, the sea's my life, no turning back, no land, no wife. She'll hold me close, she'll take my breath. The sea's my love in life and death. My love was a lass from Marsember, and we were to wed last Myrtle. A whaler from Westgate stole her away. The sea take all whalers from Westgate, brave boys, sea take the whalers of Westgate. The sea's my love, the sea's my life, no turning back, no land, no wife. She'll hold me close, she'll take my breath. The sea's my love in life and death. My love was a lass from Luscan, a beauty with eyes of green. A captain of Calumport stole her away. The sea take all captains from Calumport, brave boys, the sea take the captains of Calumport. My love was a lass from Baldur's Gate, a beauty with skin of gold. A trader from Tether stole her away. The sea take all traders from Tether, brave boys, the sea take the traders of Tether. The sea's my love, the sea's my life, no turning back, no land, no wife. She'll hold me close, she'll take my breath. The sea's my love in life and death. The sea's my love, the sea's my life, no turning back, no land, no wife. She'll hold me close, she'll take my breath. The sea's my love in life and death.
Imagine the sheer sensory whiplash of this. Like the smell of sulfur and ozone and just a burning iron is still clinging to your clothes.
Right, your lungs are basically still on fire from the air in Avernus.
Exactly. The air in a dimension explicitly designed to just, break your spirit.
Yeah.
You've just pulled off this totally desperate, mathematically impossible escape from a literal burning hellscape.
Adrenaline is just completely redlining your whole nervous system.
Oh, 100%. So you step through this crackling portal, the flames close right behind you, and instantly, like in the split second, the temperature drops 30 degrees.
It's that damp river water smell.
Yeah, the air's suddenly thick with damp earth and this encroaching fog. You haven't even had a single second to really process that you're out of the nine hells, and suddenly you're standing in the cobblestone streets of Baldur's Gate.
Plunging headfirst right into a gothic anatomical mystery in the dead of night.
It's incredible. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking a really phenomenal pivot in our adventurer's journey.
We're focusing heavily on the events documented in the sources as Grave of the Witness, Part 1.
Right. Our whole mission today is to analyze this dramatic transition. We'll touch really briefly on the mechanical ingenuity of their escape from hell, but we really want to focus on what happens when they get back.
Because the psychological toll of that shift is just massive. You go from macro survival like dodging the literal blood war to a micro-investigative scenario.
Yeah, crouching behind crooked tombstones, waiting for silent intruders, it requires a completely different cognitive toolkit, So we're exploring the toxic politics of the city's elite, the trauma of infernal espionage, and then heading straight into Tumbledown Cemetery.
Right, a graveyard stakeout that points to some very old, very dark power stirring under the city.
Exactly. So just to set the stage super briefly, the party was stranded in the Bronze Citadel in Avernus, betrayed by their guide, no map, no portals. Because portals out of hell usually require, a soul as a toll.
Which forces a completely lateral solution. When conventional magic is locked down, you break the tools you already have.
Yeah. And Valessa, the wizard, does exactly that. She realizes her imp familiar, Colbit, is safely back in Baldur's Gate. So she uses the Find Familiar spell, but she weaponizes the spatial mechanics of it.
It's brilliant, honestly.
It is. I was trying to conceptualize it, and it feels like a submarine trapped under a massive ice sheet. You can't break the ice to surface, right?
Right.
And you can't radio through the water. But you find this one microscopic crack, and you just ping a single desperate sonar pulse up through it, hoping a friendly ship hears it.
That analogy tracks perfectly with the planar physics here. Usually you pull a familiar from a pocket space to the material plane, but the geography is inverted. Valessa is trapped in hell, so she violently yanks Quilbit from Baldur's Gate straight into Avernus.
And Quilbit's reaction is just, the imagery in the sources is incredible. She materializes in a puff of smoke, sees the burning walls of the Ashen Cup Tavern, and just starts shrieking.
Well, yeah, entirely justified. Imps are at the absolute bottom of the infernal food chain. Being in the Bronze Citadel for her is like walking through a minefield wearing a giant target.
Right, so they immediately have to bribe her with this exorbitant future payout just to cut through the panic. And the message they send back with her is super targeted.
It is. Santal remembers a detail from Valesa's apprentice, Rosora. The kid had a very powerful tutor, Mizora.
Cambion, and an advisor to Grand Duke Will Ravengard. So the play is, Quilbit goes back, tells Rosora they're trapped, and Rosora cashes into favor with Mizra, which I have to say, my first reaction to this was just pure disbelief.
Because it seems completely counterintuitive.
You're trapped in a devil's domain, so you invite a vastly more powerful, politically connected devil right to your doorstep. It's like putting out a grease fire with gasoline.
It totally feels that way. But you have to look at the specific threat architecture of Avernus. The Bronze Citadel is raw, unpredictable hostility. A random demon could slaughter you, or you could get conscripted.
Right, just total chaos.
Exactly. Mizra, though, represents structured hostility. She's a cambion operating under the rigid legalism of infernal law. You can't negotiate with a burning river, but you can negotiate with a politician.
A fiendish politician, but yeah, still a politician. So they trade an existential threat for a predictable hazard.
And a hazard who really knows how to make an entrance.
Oh my gosh, yes. Quilbit vanishes, they're waiting in the room, and Mizor doesn't send like a rescue squad. She literally steps through a wall of infernal fire right into their parlor.
And her physical posturing in that moment is so fascinating.
She doesn't kick the door down. She just casually strolls in, flops onto the couch, and this is my favorite part. She actually uses Vagfrieder, the towering Tabaxi barbarian, as a literal footrest.
It's a massive flex. It's this incredibly sophisticated application of soft power.
Right. She's establishing a baseline reality where she is the only entity with any actual agency in the room.
Exactly. If she came in throwing hellfire around, she'd be validating the party as a legitimate threat. But by treating a highly lethal barbarian like ergonomic support, she's non-verbally communicating this massive power disparity.
She's basically saying, your physical capabilities are completely irrelevant to me.
Right. It forces them into a subservient psychological posture before a single word of negotiation even happens.
And then she backs up that physical dominance with an overwhelming asymmetry of information. She knows everything. She knows about their betrayal. She dismisses the Cambion Raphael as just a toy collector.
Which establishes her own perceived superiority, yeah.
Yeah, and the heavy hitter. She knows they have the Calamus Pactum, the infernal quill forged by Asmodeus.
Which is a geopolitical nightmare in the wrong hands. It drafts unbreakable contracts. The fact that she doesn't instantly demand it as payment is a really calculated risk. She's playing a much longer game here.
Right, she positions herself as a benefactor. She offers to open a portal home, expedites Valesa's adoption paperwork for Rosora, and all she wants is for the party to keep mentoring the girl.
Which feels like a total Trojan horse.
It completely does. Like, why does a powerful Cambion care about a mortal teenager's extracurriculars?
Because devils operate on a timeline mortals can't really grasp. We plan for 5 years, they plan for 5 centuries. By making sure Rosora is trained by these highly capable adventurers, Mizora is cultivating a major future asset.
She's outsourcing the labor of training a future operative to the party and getting them to say thank you for it.
It's brilliantly manipulative. So the deal is struck, the bureaucracy is handled because hell loves its paperwork, and she opens the portal.
And they step through, out of the suffocating ash of Avernus, and right into the cool, quiet library of Eomain House in Baldur's Gate. Back with Rosora and Little Nicene.
But that tonal whiplash we mentioned earlier really hits hard here.
Oh, absolutely. It should be a victory lap, but the tension doesn't dissipate, it just compresses, because Mizora steps through the portal right with them.
The physical geography shifted to this nice domestic setting, but the infernal entanglement is standing right there in the library.
It creates this intense cognitive dissonance, and she doesn't let them decompress at all. She immediately drops some high-level geopolitical intelligence on them. She warns them about Melra.
Right, the Red Wizard, an agent of the Regent of Thay currently operating in disguise in the city.
Let's actually pause on that for you, the listener, because the sources note Mizora is genuinely disturbed by this. If a devil with her connections is sweating a red wizard, that completely changes the threat assessment. What makes the tie-ins such a unique problem?
Well, Thay is a magocracy, ruled by immensely powerful, often undead necromancers. Their red wizards are their intelligence operatives. Devils are bound by that strict legalese of their contracts, right?
Yeah, the fine prints.
Exactly. But red wizards are only bound by their pursuit of arcane supremacy. They don't care about local laws or moral constraints at all. So a tie-in operative in Baldur's Gate suggests a plot that could destabilize the entire region.
Which would totally disrupt Mizra's own long-term political investments there. And then she mentions this Mael Rowe was romantically involved with Sarisha Imraville, the party's former employer. The alliances are so tangled.
But right in the middle of this high-level briefing, the narrative takes this sudden, incredibly dark turn into pure body horror.
Oh, man, yeah. Valessa makes a confession. She admits to Mizra that she was coerced by another Cambion Neressa into carrying a bug to spy on Mizra's office.
Which is a moment of profound vulnerability. Valessa probably realizes she's completely out of her depth and just hopes transparency buys her some leniency.
I thought she literally signed her own death warrant. You don't tell an apex predator you brought a tracker into their den. But the extraction of this bug, I mean, it's one of the most viscerally disturbing things in the sources.
It really is. It's not a magical coin or something.
No. Mizora steps up, presses a single manicured fingertip just above Valessa's navel, and basically coaxes this thing out of her biology. Valessa feels it writhing in her gut, moving up her chest.
And then a 1.5 foot long millipede covered in Asmodeus symbols crawls up her throat and out of her mouth.
I physically shuddered reading that. Valessa just drops to her knees, violently retching.
It's a complete subversion of normal espionage. Neressa didn't just plant a listening device, she violated Valessa's physical autonomy. It's an incredibly invasive biological surveillance.
It really underscores the sheer cruelty of infernal politics. But the most shocking part isn't even the parasite. It's Mizora's reaction.
Right.
Mizora plucks the insect out of the air, crushes it to ash, and then she drops to her knees next to Valessa. She gently strokes her hair and murmurs, "Good girl."
Yeah, that detail is chilling.
I was so baffled by it at first.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't Mizora punish her? Why the maternal affection after a massive security breach? I thought, okay, it's operant conditioning. She's rewarding the truth. But what's your read on this dynamic? It feels so insidious.
It's definitely operant conditioning at the baseline, but you're right, the psychological architecture goes way deeper. Think about it. If Mizora responds with wrath, she teaches Valessa fear.
And fear makes people hide things.
Exactly. If Valessa gets compromised again, fear would dictate she conceal it. But by responding with this gentle, almost maternal affection, Mizora is monopolizing Valessa's sense of safety.
Oh, wow.
She frames Nereza as the abuser who violated Valessa and frames herself as the benevolent savior who painlessly removed the threat. It cultivates a deeply toxic, trauma-bonded loyalty.
So the next time Valessa is in trouble, her instinct isn't to run away, it's to run directly to Mizora for protection.
Precisely. It's psychological surgery. She is literally rewriting Valessa's survival instincts.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
And that profound psychological exhaustion is exactly why we see such a stark pivot the second Mizora finally leaves.
Yeah.
Because you don't just walk off that kind of violation. You need to ground yourself.
You really do. And the sources give us this beautiful, quiet contrast right after.
Yeah, Vagfrior, this massive tabaxi, just waddles into the kitchen with little Nicene still physically clinging to her leg like a barnacle. And she just starts cooking a simple meal, roasted chicken and fresh bread.
The text notes this is a deliberate antidote to the hells, which is such a great detail. Food is a potent narrative anchor.
Right, because in Avernus, everything tastes like ash and sulfur.
Exactly. Sustenance there is miserable. It constantly reminds you that you're in a hostile place. But the smell of roasting poultry, chopping vegetables, the warmth of an oven, those are sensory cues that signal safety. Vagfrier is basically using culinary routine as group therapy.
She's reestablishing their connection to the material plane, to their own humanity. And then Cirrus, the rogue, steps in and mixes this highly specific dessert. Fresh fruit and really potent alcohol designed explicitly to chemically erase the lingering taste and phantom memory of that millipede from Valessa's mouth.
It's a deeply empathetic detail. It highlights the difference between their dynamic and the infernal ones. Mizora uses vulnerability as a lever for control, but Cirrus and Vagfrier respond to it with genuine care.
Yeah, it shows how much they rely on each other to absorb the shockwaves of this lifestyle. But of course, this party can't exist without a healthy dose of chaos.
Right on cue.
The tension is entirely shattered by Quillbit. The imp returns with the 8 subordinate imps they bought from Nereza's menagerie, and she immediately sets up this tiny militant chain of command. And then, I burst out laughing at this, She tries to ride a demonic, backwards-footed abyssal chicken like a rodeo mount right there in the house.
It's completely absurd, but it serves a really vital narrative function.
Oh, absolutely. A palate cleanser.
Exactly. Prolonged tension exhausts the audience as much as the characters. You can't just sustain the grim atmosphere of body horror indefinitely without numbing the emotional receptors. Injecting this bizarre, low-stakes physical comedy resets the baseline.
So that the impending dread of the next segment hits with full impact. And that reset is necessary because they don't get to rest for long. They're cleaned up, fed, psychologically stabilized, and they head straight to the job board.
Right, skipping over a contract for the river's rot and honing in on Grave of the Witness.
Drawn by two things: a symbol of Saloon, the moon goddess, and a favor owed to the cemetery workers of Tumbledown. So they head out into the foggy night to the Elf Song Tavern to meet their employer.
And transitioning from the private sanctuary of Emain House to the Elf Song Tavern really signals the genre shift here. We are leaving plainer politics and stepping to gritty urban noir. The Elf Song is this classic neutral ground for the city's criminal and adventuring ecosystem.
And the employer waiting for them, I have to say, this is easily my favorite character introduction in this entire deep dive.
It's fantastic.
The bartender calls out for Seraphine, and I was expecting like a stoic, grim paladin in heavy armor radiating divine purpose, right?
That would be the archetype, yeah.
Instead, Seraphine Moonskill, this tall, dragonborn paladin of Saloon, trips over two seated patrons, violently knocks over a tray of drinks, scrambles to the bar, and just exudes the chaotic, vibrating energy of someone who's been nervously waiting for a blind date for 3 hours.
It's deliberately disarming. She's got this aggressively friendly golden retriever enthusiasm that feels completely out of place in a gloomy mercenary tavern.
She literally takes one look at Valessa and Cirrus, notices they're both wearing blue, and shouts, "Twinsies!" and points at them.
And traps the giant barbarian in a massive, awkward bear hug when she tries to pay for the spilled drinks.
Yeah. And then, before the party can even take a sip of their own drinks, Seraphine rapidly downs 3 astral plane cocktails in succession.
Which is a staggering amount of alcohol.
I looked up the recipe in the source notes. It's gin, violet liqueur, and elderflower liqueur. Chugging 3 of those back-to-back is phenomenal. I honestly read her entrance as pure comic relief at first. Just a paladin who can't hold her liquor.
Right, but you have to look closer at the job she's pitching. Her chaotic demeanor is definitely masking something.
Yeah. What do you make of that juxtaposition between the goofiness and the actual task?
Well, you have to separate her social clumsiness from her professional competence. People conflate a lack of social grace with a lack of intelligence, which is a dangerous mistake here. She's clearly anxious, using the alcohol to cope with the stress of the investigation.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because look at the facts she presents. She hasn't just noticed a crime. She meticulously cataloged a pattern of highly specific, arcane behavior that the local law enforcement completely missed. Her analytical skills are razor sharp.
And the details of the job she lays out are genuinely chilling. She explains that for the past 4 nights, at exactly 2:00 a.m., 3 figures carrying lanterns have entered the Tumbledown Cemetery through the cliff gate.
Right.
They disturbed 3 specific graves, and 2 cemetery workers, a laborer and a night watchman, tried to intervene and vanished completely.
Yeah.
But the detail that completely recontextualizes the crime is what the intruders left behind. Because it's not traditional grave robbery.
Precisely. A standard grave robber is motivated by economics, right? They dig up a corpse, pry off the gold rings, take the silver amulets, and leave the body exposed.
But Seraphine notes that absolutely no valuables were taken. The jewelry was untouched. Instead, the bodies were medically examined. Whoever orchestrated this just pricked the fingertip of each corpse, extracted a minuscule amount of blood, and moved on.
It's completely forensic.
Yes, it's a forensic crime scene. They aren't looking for loot. They are executing a highly precise DNA swab on a corpse.
Which elevates the threat level immensely. Stealing a ring buys you a sword. Harvesting a specific genetic marker from a corpse. You are assembling a key.
Oh, man.
It implies arcane programming and a very specific intent. Seraphine recognized the hallmarks of a ritual. As a paladin, she's trained to combat dark magic, but her tactical sense told her this was too organized to handle alone. Knowing when to call for backup proves she's actually a highly capable operative.
So the party agrees to the contract, and they step out of the Elf Song into the foggy streets, starting the long walk toward Tumbledown. And the atmosphere building during this walk is phenomenal.
It really is.
First, Seraphine realizes she just drank 3 heavy gin cocktails and is about to walk into a combat zone. So she just drops to her knees on the cobblestones, mutters a quick prayer to Saloon, and casts lesser restoration on herself, instantly sobering up.
Which is a brilliantly pragmatic use of divine magic. It reinforces the reality of their world. Magic isn't just for epic dragon battles, it's a utilitarian tool for managing the physical consequences of their high-stress lives.
Exactly. And then she infuses her sword with the soft moonbeam, using it as a literal lantern to cut through the dense fog rolling off the river Kyanthar. And the walk itself creates this bizarre, deeply humanizing bubble of camaraderie right before the tension spikes.
Right, they're singing sea shanties about Shadowdale.
Yeah, Seraphine and Sirius are just singing in the fog. And then Valessa, perhaps completely misreading the vibe, decides to contribute by casually sharing a deeply traumatic story about how she lost her leg to a bear-formed druid during a coming-of-age ritual.
And Seraphine just stops singing and stares at her with wide-eyed, horrified sympathy.
It's so funny, but it perfectly illustrates the clash between divine idealism and mortal grit. Seraphine still has this fundamental innocence, while Valessa views extreme physical trauma as just like another Tuesday.
But these moments of mundane interaction are essential. They build the interpersonal stakes. When the danger finally arrives, the audience actually cares about the people facing it.
And the danger feels incredibly close the second they hit Tumbledown. The geography of the cemetery is inherently dramatic. It's not just a flat field, it's perched on a massive 30-foot cliff overlooking the river.
And the fog is so thick it acts as a physical barrier.
Yeah, the grounds are choked with crooked stones, leaning mausoleums, tangled ivy. It's the architectural embodiment of forgotten secrets. They meet the hard-eyed gravekeeper at the gate, who confirms the timeline and the missing workers. But this is where the investigation yields its first massive lore drop.
Right, the identities of the 3 disturbed graves.
The gravekeeper reveals the targets were Amelia Czar, Francesca Czar, and a longtime servant named Theophano.
And the targets are not random at all.
No. Siontal, the scribe, taps into their civic knowledge to provide the context here. The Czar family isn't just a wealthy lineage. They are foundational to the dark history of Baldur's Gate. Their estate was so expansive that when it fell into disrepair, the land itself became the Tumbledown district.
But the crucial detail is the patriarch, Cazador Czar.
Right. An ancient, fiercely reclusive figure who vanished without a trace decades ago during the Absolute Crisis. After he disappeared, control of his decaying mansion passed down to a retainer named Violet.
The specificity of targeting the Czar lineage completely changes the trajectory of this investigation. You're interacting with legacy magic now. Cazador is heavily implied to be tied to deeply entrenched predatory magics.
So targeting 2 direct relatives and a servant, someone who might have handled Czar artifacts or ingested their resources, suggests they are mapping a biological network.
Exactly. And the physical evidence at the scene confirms the rigid, methodical nature of this network.
The party goes in to investigate before the 2 a.m. deadline. Valessa actually climbs onto Vagfrir's shoulders to get an elevated vantage point above the fog to track the footprints. And what they find is deeply unnatural.
Right. The footprints form a mathematically direct line from the Cliffgate entrance straight to the Czar family plot.
I want to really emphasize for you, the listener, how strange this is. If you or I walk through a dark graveyard in heavy fog, we meander. We step around gravestones, we hesitate, we look for landmarks. These intruders didn't deviate by a single inch.
A mathematically straight path implies a total absence of hesitation, curiosity, or self-preservation. It is the hallmark of a construct, or an undead thrall executing a pre-programmed directive.
They didn't need to search because the location of the graves was hard-coded into their instructions. And Shane, the fixer, finds the physical proof. Kneeling in the mud near one of the graves, he finds a very clear boot print. But the boot is heavily damaged. It's missing a large, crescent-shaped chunk of leather near the toe.
And in the empty space where the sole should be pressing into the mud,
there is the unmistakable, hard-edged imprint of a bare skeletal bone.
which is just a phenomenal visual.
When I put all those pieces together, the straight walking path, the lack of hesitation, the medical precision of the blood extraction, and the exposed bone, it all points to one thing.
Animated skeletons. But we have to differentiate between types of necromancy here.
Right. How so?
Well, a zombie is a blunt instrument. It operates on hunger and aggressive instinct. You raise a zombie to cause chaos or guard a perimeter, but a skeleton lacks that biological drive. It's a blank slate.
Oh.
To make a skeleton navigate a complex urban environment, locate specific graves, dig them up without destroying the corpses, extract a microscopic blood sample, and leave without engaging in violence. That requires an incredibly high level of arcane programming. The necromancer controlling them isn't just powerful, they're operating with surgical precision.
Mindless obedience executing a highly sophisticated task. Which brings us right back to the central mystery. Why the Tsar women? And why just a prick of blood?
If we look at the mechanics of bloodline magic, it usually revolves around a lock and a key.
Okay, right.
A patriarch like Cazador Sar, who was ancient and reclusive, likely possessed vaults or sanctums that he did not want accessed by rivals. And the most secure ward you can place on a door is a biometric one, a lock that only opens for the blood of your own lineage.
And consider the timeline. Cazador vanished during the Absolute Crisis. If he left behind warded secrets, those secrets have been sitting dormant for decades. The intruders aren't grave robbers. They are safecrackers.
Exactly. Systematically harvesting the genetic material of Cazador's descendants to bypass a legacy ward.
The precision of it makes my skin crawl. It's not destruction, it's extraction. And that realization perfectly sets the stage for the climax of the segment. The clues are gathered, the lore is established, the mechanics of the crime are understood, and the clock is ticking.
It's rapidly approaching 2.0 a.m.
Yeah. The party had ceased all their banter. The sea shanties are completely done. Seraphine has dimmed the divine light of her moonbeam sword down to a mere sliver. They are just crouched in the freezing mud, hidden among the crooked tombstones. The fog is thick enough to taste, and they are waiting in absolute breathless silence for the lantern bearers to return.
It perfectly encapsulates the tension of a stakeout, but heavily infused with necromantic dread. They aren't waiting for a street gang, they're waiting for the mindless, bone-bare servants of a dark architect who's quietly assembling the pieces of a very old, dangerous puzzle.
The psychological discipline required to just sit in the dark and let the monsters come to you is immense.
Oh, for sure.
Let's pull back and look at the incredible narrative dissonance we have covered in this single deep dive. We started in the suffocating, ash-choked atmosphere of the Nine Hells.
Analyzed a brilliant interdimensional exploitation of the Find Familiar spell just to establish an impossible communication line.
Watch the party navigate the incredibly toxic, soft power politics of Mizra. Analyzed how a Cambion uses physical dominance, administrative favors, and literal psychological conditioning to secure long-term loyalty.
Extracting an Asmodean parasite only to replace it with trauma-bonded obedience.
Yeah. Then we took a brief, much-needed detour into culinary recovery, highlighting how the party uses simple meals and mixology to ground themselves, capped off by the absurd visual of an imp riding an abyssal chicken.
And finally transitioning from high infernal politics into a gritty, fog-drenched forensic investigation.
Following a fiercely enthusiastic, miraculously sober paladin into Tumbledown Cemetery, uncovering a plot involving the ancient Tsar family, mathematical footprints, and undead forensic thieves.
If there's a unifying thematic thread running through all these disparate events, it is the absolute necessity of adaptation.
Oh, entirely.
Whether you're bargaining with a Cambion in a burning tavern or tracking skeletons through a foggy graveyard, survival depends on your ability to instantly analyze and adapt to the rules of the threat in front of you. In Avernus, the rules are contractual. In Tumbledown, they're forensic and historical. The party survives because they don't treat every problem like a nail to be hit with a hammer.
They read the room, whether that room is a hellscape or a graveyard. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a chilling thread to pull on your own. We've established the likely mechanics of the crime. The intruders are mathematically precise skeletons. They're pricking the fingertips of the deceased Tsar women to harvest blood, likely building a biological key.
Right.
But consider the deep history of Baldur's Gate and the nature of the Tsar patriarch. Cazador Tsar vanished during a massive, world-shaking crisis. He left behind a sprawling estate and countless locked doors. What if this extraction isn't about claiming an inheritance? What if someone isn't trying to steal wealth from the legacy of the Tsar family?
Which leads to a very dark implication.
If Cazador Tsar sealed away his darkest secrets decades ago behind a blood ward, what exactly is waiting behind that door? And more terrifyingly, what happens when the blood of the dead is successfully used to wake something that was never truly alive to begin with?
It is a profound and terrifying structural implication. It suggests whatever is buried in the foundational history of Baldur's Gate is infinitely more dangerous than simple bone, dust, and old gold. Whoever is holding the leash of those skeletons knows exactly what they are trying to wake up.
We'll have to wait and see what emerges from the fog when the lanterns finally appear. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Whether you find yourself navigating the rigid, toxic contracts of the Nine Hells or tracking the muddy, bone-stamped footprints of a tumble-down graveyard, just remember, the best secrets are always buried deep. Keep your lanterns lit, trust your party, and we'll see you next time.